I guess Microsoft has blown the lid off the secret. It's a go for July 29th.
Isn't this typically kind of the quiet time of the year?
It is, which is why they're smart to release it in the middle of summer.
It is really strange.
I guess the first thing I would ask is it going to be ready for release on July 29th?
It doesn't matter, Leo. This is hell or high water.
This is the new Agile. This is Agile, right?
You're getting it. Shut up.
Release it and fix it. Break things fast and fix them fast.
Yep.
But that's a new kind of way of thinking for the state-old Microsoft. kind of modern.
Working on it, although this is probably out of order. In fact, it's certainly out of order. But the other day when they announced this, I went back and looked. Because what was it like for the previous version of Windows, right? The previous version of Windows, they announced the RTM of it on August 1st, 2012.
Yeah.
And then the product shipped on October 26th alongside new hardware and the retail boxes and all that stuff.
This is Windows 8 you're talking about.
Windows 8. So 3 years later, if you look at the delta, but we don't know when it's going to RTM, there's still, right now, there's less time until the release of Windows 10 than there was between the RTM of Windows 8 and the release of Windows 8. So whenever they do finalize it with little air quotes, it's still going to be half or 1/3 the amount of time between that milestone and the actual release to the public. Which is, I think says a lot about how things have changed.
Yeah.
Although I remember that October date being kind of just an artificial date in a way, right? It was like they wanted to have a big launch with new hardware and have something very orchestrated. So if they don't care about doing that this time, which is what we think, right? They don't really need that.
Yes, although, by the way, it's interesting that you bring that up. I just wrote about this. I turned a story that was going to be about here's what the new Windows 10 PCs look like into something that was completely different, which is, frankly, there's not a lot new going on here. In other words, PCs have evolved and they're getting thinner and lighter and they have no bezels or whatever. But when you look at the new hardware stuff that Windows 10 can take advantage of, it's not really that much of a big bomb like it was for Windows 8.
Yeah.
Windows 8 was when we got the first actual tablets and 2-in-1 PCs, and PC makers were experimenting with designs, and some things worked and some things didn't. And it took, I think, those 3 years for that to kind of mature into, okay, here's the PC market as we now understand it. And then for Windows 10, it's like, well, Windows Hello, it's a little easier to sign into your computer. But that stuff's really been around. I mean, people with Lenovo PCs have been able to use a camera to log into their computers already. Fingerprint scanners have been around for a long time.
True.
DirectX gaming. What else is there? Continuum is just an evolution of what we already had. I mean, it's not...
Cortana. Well, how about the start menu?
Well, I mean, but I'm sorry. I mean,
that's
Windows
just pure cosmetics. I mean, that's not...
No, I mean, but Windows...
I mean, and they could, by the way,
if
that's all you want,
themselves.
You could do that by pushing a button.
Right.
No, that's what I mean. In other words, these are features that would impact the hardware.
Right.
In other words, why would I want to buy a new PC? Like what? Why would I wait for a Windows 10 PC, right? Maybe it has a camera that does Windows Hello. Maybe it has a fingerprint scanner. Maybe it has a detachable screen and Continuum works. None of it's actually super new.
Right.
It's just a little bit evolved, I would say, for Windows 10. And maybe that's part of the reason why.
Yeah.
It might be just to make it come out a little earlier so they can artificially make some kind of back-to-school season or something.
Well, we used to say this, and I still think it's true. We used to say Windows 10 is to Windows 8 what Windows 7 was to Vista, right? It's the fix. It's Microsoft fixing what they screwed up.
Well, according to Fabio Pintos on the MSDN blog, it's just Windows 1.0. They're going back.
That's it. Wait. When is this from?
This is April 15th, 2015.
Why does he say that? Because it has Windows?
I don't know. I think it's funny. I mean,
because it has a little hamburger menu.
Oh, does it? No. Yes. Windows 1.0 invented the hamburger.
Sure.
Right. Everybody was saying that. Yeah.
What? Crazy.
Back to the future.
Back to the future.
They should patent that.
You should.
There's a lot going on here. I don't know how we're going to get through all this stuff.
I know.
How much under the hood new is there? Lots?
7. I don't know. Like
7.
That's a good. No, that's good. Just stick with that, Paul. I like it.
No, I don't even remember anymore. But at some point, one of the big things that Microsoft started doing was that componentization stuff. Right? That's happened. That's been going on for a long time. There's more of that in Windows 10. When they talk about One Windows and the ability to run Windows 10 on all these different systems, honestly, it's just an evolution of that stuff. It's the same.
The driver model's the same?
Yep.
Have they updated? Remember, they rewrote the TCP/IP stack for Windows 7. Have they done anything like that?
Well, they have the whole new Windows Universal underlying model, right? And there's a Windows Universal driver model.
Right.
That's
okay, but I actually don't think those are new. I would say that those are lightly evolved. I mean, they're trying to draw this distinction with Universal Apps in particular, but they're really just the latest version of what used to be called Metro Modern Apps.
Yeah. Right.
But it's one Windows in the sense that you develop universally, right?
Yeah.
We've had XAML for a while.
But that is also just an evolution. You're literally not creating a single exe that runs on multiple platforms.
Right. You're not.
Oh, you're just cross-compiling.
Again, it is better than it was, right?
Right.
It's not completely
everything,
new.
Paul. That's the nature of life. It all gets better.
Yeah.
Actually, that's not the nature of life, but it should be the nature of technology.
Yeah.
It's technology. It's like life in reverse.
For us, we're feeling like there's not a lot new because it's our job to cover these things in great detail, right?
Yeah.
But if you're somebody who's on Windows 7, and there's a lot of those people who have not upgraded to Windows 8, it's going to look pretty new to you. And there's going to be a lot of new things. I mean, you're going to get a different start menu. You're going to get new capabilities with security, a lot of under-the-hood stuff that you didn't get with Windows 8 because you never went to Windows 8.
That's
so
fair.
for us, it doesn't look crazy new, but I think for the, however, install base, what's the install base of Windows 7?
If you think it looks new to them.
It's several hundred million people. I don't remember the exact
Wait till
number.
Windows XP users see it.
Something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, you can always say that. If you haven't looked at Windows, if you've never used Windows before, it's going to look very
different. If you've been
different.
hibernating for the past 7 years. By the way, you might have seen my Windows 95 tweets today. I'm going to write something about this tomorrow, I think now. But it is striking to me, and I've made this observation before in the podcast about newer versions of Windows, but you can go back all the way to Windows 95, and you run this thing, and it's a start button and a start menu, and it's a taskbar. And there's a tray area, and there's a browser, and there's applications and Office. And frankly, the experience is very familiar. And not just because I knew it, very well back in the day, 20 years ago. But it's somewhat striking how little has changed, really, in 20 years, right? I mean, there's something interesting to that. So, yeah, you're right. I mean, you're right. It certainly, it's a good upgrade. And if you're still running a PC from 6, 8, 9 years ago, that stuff that I just described as being fairly evolutionary is going to be amazing to you.